Elsewhere in midfield, there is a young Belgian international, Yari Verschaeren, who is 2 years younger than Lukaku, actually. He's still only 19. And Ben, you'll have a better grasp than I do, but he's coming back from injury. I believe he's just come back from injury. He's diminutive. He's creative. He's good at escaping through these little tight spaces. He's played in lots of different areas, but in this sort of the 4-3-3 that Anderlecht currently have, it's possession based. It's tight at the back. It likes to play out from the back and use the defensive players and fullbacks in build up. Where does Verschaeren fit into this Anderlecht team under Vincent Kompany?
Yeah, no, interesting. Verschaeren's quite an interesting case study, I guess, for like what Anderlecht are going to do in terms of, are they going to have to change their style when he comes back? I think I like what you said about him being diminutive, because it kind of leads back to Anderlecht making the mistake with Dries Mertens back in the day, where they decided he was too small to make it at the club, and now look what he's gone on to do. So with Verschaeren, they're definitely not going to make that mistake again. I think personally, from a personal point of view and wanting entertainment, like I want to see Verschaeren on the pitch as often as possible. I think because he can play out wide, he can fit into their 4-3-3. Or I'd quite like them to stick him into that midfield three, and you can maybe have Cullen just anchoring the midfield, and then you have Lukaku, Verschaeren doing different things to be the creative spot, because they need creators in that team. Like, they just haven't got players that are creative enough to provide for the other like attacking players that they have. So yeah, he's really young. He's like got so much potential. There's so much excitement, and it was really, really just unfortunate the way he got injured. Like, he just seemed to be getting into a little bit of a role and a little bit of form, and he was starting to really like come into his own in games and stuff. And I think, to be fair to Kompany, like when we talked about Lukaku, and now we're talking about Verschaeren, and like with the young players, I think he does give them confidence, because they look up to him. Like, they've watched this guy play in his prime, and like for the national team. Like, he is an icon, he is a legend of the game in Belgium. So for these players, they will listen to him and they'll respect what he says. So personally, I think what they'll do is they'll probably play him on the wing to begin with, but I think eventually I think Kompany may just be able to be a little bit like flexible with his tactics in terms of where he wants to play Verschaeren, depending on the team they're playing against. Like, if they're going to have lots of possession, just stick him in the middle so you can kind of like move around and create the spaces that you need and kind of drop in between the lines a bit more. But yeah, it's quite hard to kind of gauge with Kompany what he's going to do, because we haven't seen that much of Verschaeren this season, at least, under Kompany as the main like decider in terms of tactics and stuff. But he's definitely like Lukaku. He's kind of a little bit behind Lukaku in terms of like, I don't think he'll get a move in the summer or anything like that. I think he does need to come back from injury, play out the rest of the season, and then kind of hit the ground running next season, get a full year under his belt then to really show what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, when I've watched Verschaeren, it's been obviously with Belgium's younger teams, their youth teams, the 21s, 19s, and that sort of thing. And obviously, he made his debut recently for the national team. But just looking at it from that perspective, he has the one of the biggest potentials in this Anderlecht team. He's one of the best potential assets. Surely you'd want to maximize that. And when I look at him, I think, yeah, you can play on the wing, you can be a good wide man, but is that going to be the best? I mean, you mentioned that the Belgian league is a physical league. Is that going to be the best place to utilize him? Is the formation that's being played currently actually going to be the best that is going to potentially maximize his market value and sort of maximize his own reputation? I mean, I have questions over that, but I mean, ultimately, Vincent Kompany is going to have to answer those with how he uses them, because he's back from, I believe he is returning from injury. I think he only played a couple of minutes in the most recent game against Mechelen.
Yeah,
And
it was like his
essentially,
first one back.
yeah, and I think technically, I think his ability is akin to that of a player in a faster, higher quality league. It's just whether that. I mean, you don't want to make the Dries Mertens mistake, because Jesus, that is a bad one. But I don't want to sort of see in 2 years' time Verschaeren still be there and think, well, what could have been. He burst onto the scene as a Belgian international very young, at 17, 18 years old, and now one injury. I mean, even with the injury, it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from that, because a lot of the time it can really restrict players' mobility to begin with. So I think I'm hoping for a strong end to the season for him, and I'm hoping that we can perhaps see him do well in that wide role. Prove me wrong, essentially. So yeah, I've got hopes for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as well, like what may help him kind of be able to play more in the middle as well is that they do have some other wingers that are exciting there. They've got Amazu who can play on the right wing. They've got Mukaru who can play on the left wing. And Kompany seems to quite like these two as his wingers. So maybe that'll be the chance for Verschaeren needs to go more centrally and just kind of get on the ball more.
Yeah, I think getting on the ball is an important point. I rambled on a bit just before then, but essentially what I was trying to get out was that I feel like the team will play better because of his technical quality being perhaps already at that level, which is in the upper echelons of the Belgian Pro League. He is going to be sort of in the top percentiles for creative numbers if he gets a consistent run. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one to keep tabs on.